The desert highway stretched endlessly under the afternoon sun, quiet, golden, and almost empty. A single sound broke the silence, the low rumble of an old blue motorcycle cutting through the wind. The rider was Henry Walker, a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran. His beard was silver, his hands calloused, and his eyes still carried that stubborn spark of pride. He rode not for speed, not for thrill, but for peace. That bike was all he had left from his past. A piece of history, rebuilt with his own hands. As he rode past the dusty exit sign for Route 9, 2 patrol cars were parked up ahead. The cops inside, Officer Daniels and Officer Collins, were new transfers, young and eager to prove themselves. "Hey, that guy's bike doesn't even have a proper plate," Daniels muttered. "Looks like a junkyard rebuild." Collins nodded. "Let's pull him over before it breaks down on the road." Moments later, red and blue lights flashed behind Henry. He sighed, eased the throttle, and coasted to the side of the road. The 2 officers stepped out, hands on their hips, walking with that unmistakable mix of confidence and impatience. "Sir, shut off that junk right now," Daniels barked. Henry glanced back, calm but firm. "This junk, son, is older than both of you, and it's running just fine." But Daniels wasn't smiling. License and registration. Henry reached into his leather jacket, his movements slow and deliberate. Years of training made him cautious around authority. Not afraid, but careful. He handed over a faded license and a stack of old papers. Collins flipped through them, frowning. "These documents are ancient. You even sure this bike's street legal?" "It's more legal than your attitude," Henry said dryly. That remark didn't sit well. Daniel circled the motorcycle, tapping its metal frame. "No VIN, no inspection tag, no visible plate. What are you hiding, old man?" Henry tightened his jaw. "Nothing. That bike belonged to my unit back in '69. I restored it myself. The registration's special. You won't find it on your tablet." Daniel smirked. "Oh, really? A special registration? Sure thing." He turned toward Collins. "Run him through the system." Collins keyed the data in, but something strange happened. The database returned a restricted record notice, a government code they hadn't seen before. Daniels. It says classified," Collins whispered. Daniels scoffed. "Yeah, right. Probably some database glitch." He turned back to Henry. "Look, old man, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Step away from the vehicle." Henry slowly dismounted, keeping his hands visible. "You boys really don't know what you're walking into, do you?" "Sir, I said step back." Henry nodded slightly, stepping away. His calmness unnerved them. They started inspecting the motorcycle, and that's when Collins noticed a small, weathered brass plate near the engine. It wasn't a VIN tag. It was a military emblem. The letters etched into it read, U.S. Army Prototype, 1969, Classified Transport Division. Collins's eyes widened. "Daniels, this thing's military property." Daniels hesitated. That can't be right. Before they could argue further, 2 tan-colored military Humvees appeared on the horizon, speeding toward them. You called backup?" Collins asked nervously. "I didn't." Henry folded his arms and smiled faintly. "Guess someone else did." Within minutes, the Humvees stopped beside them, and a group of soldiers stepped out. One man, wearing a decorated uniform, approached. His badge read, Cola Richard Hayes. "Mr. Walker," he said respectfully. "We've been looking for you." Daniels blinked. "Sir, what's going on here?" The colonel turned, stern. "Officers, stand down. You just pulled over a decorated combat engineer. That motorcycle he's riding was a classified military prototype he personally helped design 54 years ago." The silence that followed was heavy. Henry didn't gloat. He simply nodded to the colonel. "Didn't think anyone remembered?" Hayes smiled. "We remember, sir. You saved 6 soldiers in Vietnam using that machine when the convoy was ambushed. That bike was decommissioned and lost. Until now." Daniel's face turned red. He mumbled, We didn't know." Henry looked at him calmly. "That's the problem these days, son. You stop people before you see who they are." The colonel turned to the officers. "Gentlemen, this man deserves a salute, not a citation." They did. And for the first time in years, Henry felt seen again. The military convoy escorted Henry back to the base for verification. Inside the gates, The guard straightened at the sight of the colonel and the old veteran on the blue motorcycle. The base mechanic looked at the machine with awe. "Sir, this is one of the first experimental models of our rapid response unit. Only 2 were ever built." Henry smiled. "And both were built with bare hands in the jungle, not a factory." Reporters soon caught wind of the story. Within hours, headlines spread. "Police stop elderly man, discover he is a war hero who built his own motorcycle." Social media erupted. The same officers who had doubted him were now being hailed for accidentally bringing a forgotten hero back into the spotlight. At a small ceremony held the following week, Colonel Hayes presented Henry with a medal he'd never received. The Valor of Engineering Award, created for those who used innovation to save lives. The officer stood in the front row. Daniels couldn't meet his eyes. After the ceremony, he walked up to Henry. "Sir, I'm sorry for how I talked to you. I didn't mean any disrespect." Henry chuckled. "Apology accepted, but next time you pull someone over, remember, not every rusted thing is broken." They shook hands, and the crowd applauded quietly. Later that night, Henry returned to his modest workshop on the edge of town. The motorcycle gleamed under the single yellow bulb. He wiped the dust off its tank and whispered, "We made it back, old friend." But the story didn't end there. A few months later, Henry received a call from the Pentagon. They were creating an exhibit called Innovation in the Line of Fire, and they wanted his motorcycle to be the centerpiece. At first, he hesitated. That bike was part of him, his last connection to the men he'd lost overseas. But then he thought of the young faces at the ceremony, the ones who'd saluted him with genuine respect. He agreed. When the exhibit opened, veterans, families, and school kids gathered around his motorcycle, now shining behind glass, with a plaque that read, "Designed and operated by Sergeant Henry Walker, U.S. Army, 1969, saved 6 soldiers during Operation Iron Trail." Daniels and Collins attended the opening, now both more seasoned, humbled, wiser. As Henry stood there, an old man approached him, limping slightly, wearing the same patch from his former unit. "Henry, you old dog, I thought you didn't make it." Henry's eyes welled up. "Tom Rayner, my radio man. You're alive." The two embraced, the crowd watching silently. Tom laughed. "Still riding that death trap, huh?" "Still keeping her alive," Henry said, smiling. "She's a reminder of the things worth fighting for." A reporter asked Henry what lesson he wanted people to take away from his story. He paused, looking at the young officers nearby. "Respect," he said. "Not just for uniforms or titles, but for stories. Everyone you meet has one. You just gotta listen before you judge." The crowd erupted in applause. As the camera lights flashed and microphones surrounded him, Henry looked back at the motorcycle, the same blue steel that once roared through war and now stood as a symbol of remembrance. He didn't see an old machine. He saw his brothers. He saw home. And for the first time in decades, the weight on his chest felt lighter. The desert road that once seemed lonely now had meaning again, because the world finally remembered the man who never stopped riding for what was right. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more cinematic, true-style stories. Stories that remind us respect costs nothing but means everything. Have a wonderful day ahead.